It's Yun Jin, not Yun Jin. 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 Hello. Today we're going to talk about Yun Jin in my second video of the No-Novelty character reviews. Yun Jin, obviously, novelty is long gone. She's been out for a while, but I only recently built mine. So today we're going to talk about what I like about her, what I don't like about her, what team she works well in, what she does, and if she's worth building at all. It's gonna be a pretty quick one today because I don't feel like there's a lot to say about Yun Jin really. She does what she says she does, and that's kind of all there is to it. There's not a lot of intricacy I find behind her kit. It's pretty straightforward, so I don't think we're gonna be here for that long, so you can get on with your lives. Where am I brain at today? What am I trying to do or say? What am I brain at today? What am I trying to do or say? But before we get into it, don't forget to join me on twitch.tv/Meejin, Meejin. You can catch me live on stream, hang out with us in the chat. It's a great time, always. I promise. Anyway, let's get into the video. Okay, so who is Yun Jin? What does she do? What's her kit like? How do we use her? Let's get into it. So Yun Jin is a 4-star Geo character. Basically what Yun Jin does is she buffs normal attack damage. Now, normal attack damage means just that. Normal attacks doesn't count for like plunging damage. Like if you're wondering if she would work well with Zhao, for example, it's not gonna buff plunging attack. It is normal attack damage only. How she buffs normal attack damage is by using her burst. So if you're building support Yun Jin, which I assume 99.9% of people are, you really only need to focus on her burst. I've leveled her skill to 8 unnecessarily, and I knew that. But really, the thing you need to focus on is the burst, and the burst alone if you're looking to buff damage. Basically how it works is she just buffs your party's normal attack damage based on her current defense. A little spoily for the build here, full def. So my Yun Jin, her current skill level without the constellation is level 9. With the constellation, it is 12. So at that level, we get a 64% def damage increase. So 64% of her defense is the damage increase we get with the normal attacks, which is very nice. Now this is another part you need to pay attention to, the duration or the trigger quota. The duration is self-explanatory, but the trigger quota is how many times you can trigger this normal attack buff using one burst. So it's 12 seconds or 30 normal attacks, whichever comes first, and the 30 normal attacks counts multiple enemies at once if you used one attack to hit them with. So for example, I use her with Razor, and if I'm standing in a circle of enemies and I got 3 enemies around me and I hit all 3 of them with one attack, that counts as 3 of my 30 quotas. So either 12 seconds or 30 normal hits, whichever comes first, that's how long the buff will last. Energy cost 60, very reasonable, very manageable. Basically, you just need to make sure you have enough energy recharge to keep that burst going over and over, and you'll be good. The skill is a parry skill, works similarly to Beto's. Yun Jin's E skill has 3 kind of levels to it. If you just press it, she'll just do a quick little twirl and you'll gain a few particles that way. If you want a little bit of damage on her, you could level it like I did. Her normal attacks are just normal attacks. The end. The other thing you need to note about Yun Jin's kit is that she works well with characters of different elements. She is not a mono Geo character. This breaking conventions passive talent benefits from Yun Jin being on a team with different types of elements. If you have 4 characters with different elemental types on your team, then an additional 11.5 of Yun Jin's def is going to be converted into that normal attack buff. As for Yun Jin constellations, she actually has quite a few good ones. C1's kind of whatever. It reduces your skill, the E skill, the cooldown by 18%. Which is like, you know, no big deal really, kind of whatever. C2 is pretty nice. It adds an additional boost to normal damage. Normal attack damage is increased by 15% for 12 seconds when you use your ult. So that's just an extra little damage boost, so it's quite nice. C3, talent upgrade. C4 is a def buff. Once Yun Jin triggers a crystallized reaction, which she should be able to do pretty easily being a Geo character, and if she's paired with non-Geo characters, you can get yourself a little crystallized reaction. And of course, when you increase her def, you're gonna buff her ult, so it's just another damage increase, also very nice. C5, talent upgrade, we know the drill. C6 is also quite nice. Yun Jin's ideal party involves Yoimiya. I don't have Yoimiya, so we can't test that out today, I'm sorry. But Yoimiya shines when she is speedy. If you can get her normal attacks going like crazy with a little bit of extra speed, you're gonna do a lot of damage. So that's why this constellation is particularly good. I imagine it would actually be quite nice with my Razor as well, whose ult also increases his attack speed. All right, so let's get into my Yun Jin build. Now, of course, we have energy energy recharge quotas we gotta fill. 60 energy burst cost is not terrible. Favonius Lance kind of gives me all the energy recharge I need. A few rolls on some substats here and there, and then she's good to go. However, it is important to note that if you're gonna run a Favonius, you're gonna have to have a little bit of crit rate. I've been using my R1 version of Favonius. For today, I might switch it to the R5 one, just to like really get maximum potential from our Yun Jin. Artifact set wise, best in slot is Husk of Opulent Dreams, and of course, as we discussed briefly earlier, full def. Full def. Like I said, you're going to want some crit rate rolls, some energy recharge is nice, but really focusing on that heavy def is going to be ideal. So just to roll through my artifacts really quickly, here's what we got on the flower, her plume, full def sands, her goblet, full def, and of course a def circlet. So when it's all said and done, my Yun Jin sits at 2,469 def, which is pretty nice. Listen, I know I just talked about the crit rate needing to be a little bit higher so that you can proc Favonius. Do as I say, not as I do. I find it hard to find the crit rate rolls in my artifacts, so it's not ideal, but it's what we're working with. Get more crit rate if you can. I do not lead by example. I am sorry. So team-wise, this is the team I've been running my Yun Jin in the most, buffing my Razor. I actually built her specifically for Razor. Because I have C6 Benny, he just is not going to work with Razor anymore. He's going to ruin his physical damage. So even though C6 Benny didn't affect most of the teams I run, it did affect my Razor. So I specifically built him a Yun Jin. And I like this team. Sucrose is nice just because she's Sucrose and she buffs everyone's damage. She helps suck enemies together, which is dope. Diona we have here purely for heals. My Diona build is garbage. But despite that, her shield does well, her healing does well. I'm gonna revisit her someday, so keep an eye out for that video. So this is a team I've been using her for personally, but if you're looking for the best in slot team and for what a lot of people use their Yun Jin for, it is a Yoimiya team. Yoimiya as your DPS, Benny as your healer and attack booster, Xingqiu as your Hydro to proc vapor actions with Yoimiya, and then Yun Jin to buff the normal attack damage. That's an excellent team. A+, I've seen some crazy stuff done with that team. Another fun team that I've been playing around with is Yun Jin to buff my Benny, because my Benny is C6. When he stands in his ult and he does his normal attacks, it converts to Pyro, and add a Yun Jin in, you're also getting her buff. And again, all these characters have 4 different elements, so buffed even further. Honestly, anyone who's just using normal attack damage is gonna benefit from Yun Jin. So my thoughts on Yun Jin. Like I said, pretty straightforward. She does what she says she's gonna do, and she does it well. I've been enjoying her a lot in the Razor comp. When I started using Yun Jin, it almost doubled. Now he does like 25k, 26k, 27k. It's been wild. She can be very helpful in a situation where you're using your other damage buffer, I assume maybe a Benny, in something like Spiral Abyss, and he's being taken up by a different team. You can slot Yun Jin in on the other side on a different team, and she can buff you that way. And you freed up a slot, and you have a cool new character who can sing and dance, and it's awesome. But let's get into a little more detail about the good and the bad about Yun Jin. It's probably gonna be pretty quick because, like I said, not that complicated. The first thing I like about her is I found her really easy to build. As someone who's an Ito main and who's farmed the absolute heck out of the Husk domain, I had artifacts coming out the wazoo for this lady, okay? I barely had to build anything. It was already there for me when I was using those artifacts on Ito before I got something better. So if you've ever farmed for an Ito, a Goro, or Albedo, and you already have Husk pieces lying around, she just uses your leftover defense pieces, and it's great. I've never had to farm so little for artifacts in my life. Now, of course, if you haven't built Geo characters with the Husk set and you haven't been living in the Husk domain like me, then yeah, you're gonna have to farm a little for her. But thankfully, when you're building all def is a fairly common main stat to get on pieces, a lot easier than the specialized ones, so chances are you don't have to farm as long to get passable pieces. Yun Jin's not gonna be your DPS most likely, so you don't need like amazing perfect artifacts. Just get the main substat and a few other artifacts with some def rolls and you're good to go, really. So that's definitely a plus for her. Another thing I like about her is that Yun Jin can actually do some okay damage on her own. Like I said, I leveled her skill to level 8, so if I parry it correctly, she can do like a little bit of damage. And while we're on the subject of the parry, so heckin' fun. I love parry mechanics, I love Beidou, as we know, and she works similarly to Beidou. You can execute a very satisfying move. I like it when it works out. I like parries a lot. When it doesn't work out, yeah, it's whatever, it's not the greatest. But when it does work out, awesome, fun, best time you'll ever have. Another reason I like Yun Jin is she kind of breaks the Geo mold. A lot of Geo characters kind of rely heavily on being placed with other Geo characters. For me, I'm really used to mono Geo, being an Ito main, and Yun Jin kind of breaks that mold a little. She works best with a variety of characters, a variety of elements, and in that sense, she's pretty fun, pretty unique, and I just think that's kind of neat. The last region. The The last reason I like Yun Jin is she just has a fun story, and I loved the opera song when we first heard it. I thought it was so unique and beautiful, and I never really experienced Chinese opera before. And I think that's just like in general one of the wonderful things about this game is that they have the funds to do it right and to bring on the people who can really execute the character really well. So they got a professional opera singer to do the opera parts of Yun Jin. Yang Yang, I might be saying that wrong, I am sorry. She's phenomenal. I was gobsmacked when they introduced her and we got that piece of the opera. I know it wasn't a lot of people's cup of tea, but I love the theater. And if you're gonna give me theater in a different country, I love it too. I love all of it. It's great. Yeah, it was just fabulous. And I think part of what makes Yun Jin so fun and unique is that cultural element. I can listen to that little opera song any day of the week. They nailed it. Love it. Think it's fabulous. All right, so now that we've talked about the good, let's talk about the bad. And I got news for you. There's not a lot. I had a lot more to talk about when it came to Heizo's no-novelty review because Heizo is a DPS, and I think with DPS there's maybe more to scrutinize. But Yun Jin is a support role and she does what she says she's gonna do. So there's really not too much I can knock her for, especially after playing with her. I find that her gameplay's smooth, I have no trouble with her energy needs, and she buffs the damage she says she's gonna buff. So what really can you complain about? Well, there's one thing you can complain about, and it's one of the things you can complain about just about every character who isn't Benny. Because guess what? There's only one Benny, and it's Benny. It's getting late here. But yes, Yun Jin's not Benny. And I know, that might come as a surprise to you. I hate to break it to you, Yun Jin is not Benny. So basically, that's really the only downside I can find to Yun Jin. You will most likely need a healer if you're gonna run Yun Jin. For me, in my Razor team, as you saw, I'm running Diona because we do need some heals. So that's really the only negative thing I can think about when it comes to Yun Jin is she just doesn't fill the role of both support and healing. I suppose if I was nitpicking, the other downside I could give Yun Jin is that some of her potential is locked behind constellations. And it doesn't make her unusable by any means, but she does get a lot better with constellations. This second was your priority, so it's not even terrible really, especially as a 4-star to get constellations on her. But if you're running Yoimiya, C6 is also nice, so that would really be the only other downside I could say. All right, so I'm just gonna do a quick little showcase. I'll show you the Razor team as well as the Benny team. This is the team I've been using most, and we'll just fight Masanori. He's ready. Is he wearing shoes or is he just wearing like rope around his toes? I never realized how much his toes are eating that rope. Oh my gosh, hungry toes much. So just to quickly show the difference, here's Razor's normal attacks without being buffed. Yep, 9, 11k there. Occasionally we get that proc from his C6, the Electro proc. But that's about what he does without being buffed by Yun Jin. So let's see him in full action with the Yun Jin. Start with a little Diona. We can swirl the cryo too when we use Sucrose if we use Diona first. Another Diona skill. I'll try to parry it with Yun Jin. I don't know if he's gonna try to hit me, but like I said, pretty good damage for not being able to even parry it. Throw down a little ult just in case we get hurt. And here he is doing the damage now, not in his ult form even, just blank. And there we go, 24, 27 I had once. So pretty good, definitely a big damage boost right there. That's ult again. Razor's attacks very quickly. So there it is there. 24k, 23k. So pretty nice, definitely a pretty nice damage boost as you can see. All right, so here's the Benny team in action. All right, so just to show you Benny's normal damage when we're not being buffed by the Yun Jin, I'll ult and we'll do some auto attacks. So as you can see, 6k, 8k range, 7k, 6k normal attacks. Mind you, we're being infused with Pyro, so it is more powerful than if he was just doing a, physical damage. Okay, let me buff it with the Yun Jin now. Let's do our ult. Benny ult. And auto attack. So as you can see now we're doing the 12k range. Before we were in 7, 8, 9k. Now we're doing 12, 13, 14, 15 there. So really nice. Really nice little buff we can get there. And mind you, I did not have my Xingqiu for the vapes. So if we get some vape damage in there too, it's gonna be really nice. Okay, so now I'm just gonna play as I would play so you can get maybe an idea of like the full picture of how the team would work together and how quickly we can do damage when Yun Jin is in the party. Okay, so full rotation, probably start with a Benny skill to apply some Pyro. Swirl that Pyro. Let's do a Kazu ult. Xingqiu ult. Xingqiu skill. Yun Jin ult, very quick little parry so we can get some energy before the next rotation. And we're gonna ult Benny. And we're gonna absolutely delete Masanori from existence. Pretty nice, if I do say so myself. So that's just an idea of how you could use Yun Jin and how good she is, especially if you've done something like C6 Benny where your normal attack damage is now infused with Pyro, so you're already doing nice normal attack damage, and then you add the Yun Jin, buffing your buffer. It's pretty nice. It's been pretty fun. That about does it for the Yun Jin No-Novelty character review. Yun Jin's a fun character to use, and she does what she does well. She's a little more niche, but for buffing normal attacks, she does an excellent job, and I definitely recommend building her, especially if you're maining a character like Yoimiya, DPS Benny. Razor, she's good too. Eula, I would imagine she'd also be really good, especially if you see 6-tier Benny like I did, and you can't use him with her anymore, so. All in all, no regrets. Another successful no-novelty review, if I do say so myself. But seriously, I think she is a good added support, especially because if you're like me, you're always falling back on someone like Benny. This is a good little addition to your roster. Yeah, so that's gonna be it for me today. Like I said, you can catch me live at Twitch, twitch.tv/Meejin, MEEJIIN, where you can catch me live, hang out with my chat. We have a lovely, fun community, and you can be a part of it. Or you could just lurk and hang out. I understand that too. I appreciate support in any shape or form. So thank you for watching, and thank you for hanging out. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye! And if you want, I'll do a little Yun Jin dance for you.